Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You join us for, I guess what we're calling like a kind of season 1 retrospective of Frontier, right just ahead of our next release, which is going to be the start of season 2. So today what we're going to be doing is basically looking back at the whole of season 1, going through it sort of story to story, talking about kind of what happened, but also sort of our, any thoughts we have about their stories as we go. Vaguely sort of sticking to the order of events, I think, because it's been a little while, I think, since all of us have listened to it / played it. And it should be fun. Everybody's here, by the way. Say hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello.
Greetings.
Always have to be different.
Yeah. Safe to say, casual bonus episode atmosphere for this one, I think. I think we should probably start at the beginning.
Yep, sounds logical to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the real question is, do we include the one shot in this talk as well? The sort of...
Well, I think if you're going to... Honestly, AJ, if we're going to start at the beginning, we should really start as the book begins. In the beginning, the universe was created. It was widely considered to have been a bad idea. Oh, wait, shit, wrong franchise.
Yeah.
Although...
And yet, every word is fine.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
For a few seconds there, I did think you meant the Bible.
Yes, so did I. And I was just suggesting the bit where everybody begets everybody and then skip straight to the end after that.
Well, Hitchhikers is kind of the science fiction Bible, isn't it? I mean, everyone's read it, you know.
Yeah.
It gave us the answer. Not the question, but the answer.
Yeah,
I've got notes, but I don't have the full notes on who begat each of your characters, so I don't think that's really going to work so well.
No, maybe not.
No.
I'm not convinced that will be riveting.
No. This is the genealogy episode. I think, okay, well, we'll briefly talk, I think, about the one shot we did back in, like, I guess it was, like, early... this was pre-Frontier, but it was early kind of pandemic. Episode 68, we did a one-off accidental away mission, we called it. So, the year before Frontier, and it only featured Murphy and Connaught. So this was kind of the first time we met them, and it was my kind of like, I haven't played Star Trek for a few years, and I want to play Star Trek. Who wants to play Star Trek with me? Kind of thought. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of story here, was there? Other than, like, the main important thing was this is where we met Murphy and Connaught straight away. Yep. Yeah.
This is where this was not long after Murphy punched a Cardassian and lost her chance at promotion and was sent on this. I think it was a... You
were coming back from a conference
or something? Yeah, it was a conference.
Everything always goes wrong on the way back from conferences.
Mm-hmm.
And we also we met our helmsman as well. As I kept this character in as well. Your shuttle was you were on a runabout. You were being flown around by Ensign Sauce, and there was an engine issue, and you dropped out of warp and crashed on an unknown planet.
Yeah, I think we went through something and it damaged the nacelle and it sent us down.
Could be.
Yeah.
Look, if so, I totally ripped myself off when it came to the Ensign Games thing that happened, because I mean we'll get to that, but like there was like a nacelle thing there as well. Look, I'm not that creative.
I can't quite remember. I don't know if we struck something or something struck us.
It could be
something. It was something like that.
I vaguely remember, like, there wasn't a huge amount of like events other than like you crashed on a planet and you tried to do some repairs, and then there were like some sort of creatures out in the woods, and you sort of, it was kind of maybe first contact, but like they weren't really, they were like a new species kind of thing. And in my notes I have them written as the seahorse gorillas, but that's only because in my head that's kind of what I was sort of picturing, which is not a name really. And then you got picked up by the ship, and that was the whole one shot. But to be fair, like, it was fun, and it was a 90-minute episode, and we had a good time.
It was a good introduction to the game itself, like how... Yeah. Because I knew, at the time, I think you said, I really want to do like a season of this, and it was good, like, experience to get into it and that. So when you said, I'm going to put the cast together for Star Trek, do you want to come back? I was like, yes.
I think, I was kicking around ideas for Star Trek at that point. Well, I must have done the way. I mean, obviously, because you two were both in it, and then you both came back as the same character. So I think it was probably kind of in the works. And like, there's not a big jump in like episode numbers of the podcast between that and the start of Frontier. Like that was episode 68, and then Frontier started at 78. So it's it was in the works, I think. But no.
I've got the vaguest recollection of a conversation revolving around like that went well. Did we have fun? Yes. Do we want to do more? Yeah.
Yes.
And then the ball was rolling from there.
Yeah. So yeah, not much to say. My only other thing about that one to remember is my notes for that one. The ship's name was longer. I went with the full USS Tenzing Norgay. But then,
I was reading that right now. Actually,
yeah. And then I think just when we were kind of making the choices for like the full season, it was just like it was going to be quicker and easier just to shorten it, I think, with still keeping obviously the historical reference and that and everything, Yeah, I think that way. That's I haven't really got anything else I remember about that other than that I still use the one bit of music that I wrote in it because it was pretty good and it had a bunch of little Star Trek flourishes in it, and I've found a bunch of uses for it throughout Frontier as we've been going. It's just like a kind of background kind of things of things not too dangerous are happening kind of music.
That's perfect for that. I mean, it's how Trek used to do it back in the day. Like the same stings of music are used for like
all that like character cues and things like that. Yeah,
it's definitely like something I need to kind of do more of, which is like have like a week or so where I'm just like I'm going to lean on my keyboard and make a bunch of this music. As opposed to like coming to like edit and I'm like, oh no, I haven't got anything and the episode's got to be live in 6 hours, which happens way more often than it should do, kind of thing. I need to be building up like a big bank of like incidental music. Over the years I've got quite a lot of it, but like it's never perfectly what I need when I need it. If that makes sense.
It's just you could have like character themes, like try maybe base them on character themes, like maybe on neutral, like happy, all right, everything's going fine kind of vibe, and then oh crap, shit's hitting the fan kind of the more tense kind of scenes, and you could play on the opposite.
Yeah, I remember we got chased off the planet, kind of like these things were kind of like launching stuff after us as we took off, if memory serves.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's right.
I think
that was happening on that happened in the Ensign Games kind of simulation.
Conflating the two.
Yeah, but they were both kind of like crash shuttle incidents sort of thing. My memory of this one, I might be 100% wrong, but like my memory of it was that like these things did kind of climb on your, or at least got very close to your shuttle, and then ran off into like the woods. And then
Johnny tried to scare them off, but something happened with these phasers, and I think that's where the two phasers thing came from.
Very possible,
or at least it like sowed the seed of the two phasers.
I think I'm partially responsible because I listened to the one shot, and then when I joined for the beginning of Frontier Season 1, I picked up on that, and I think I slipped in a couple of times as an aside quote, which AJ I think trimmed out. But over time, it's just become law, and whether it ends up in an episode or not, I think it's just a nickname that we all have.
It's become the nickname, yeah.
Because there is a picture. There is a picture. I remember a picture being made by someone.
Yes, I drew a great picture.
Yeah,
yeah. Johnny Two Phasers.
Oh, it was perfect.
So yeah, we had a little bit of a gap, didn't we, between the one shot and the series, but not really that long. Here we go. So yeah, I mean the one shot came out April 2020. So yeah, that's right in the middle of that's a lockdown project if there ever was one. April 16th, 2020 was the one shot, and then that being said, actually, that's me saying, there wasn't that long between them. Frontier didn't launch until September 2021. So I think what happened there is that I forgot about all the what I actually now have referenced in my my spreadsheet of episode stuff is the lockdown like bonus episode zone, because it was like nothing but bonus episodes for quite a while where we were
and the world building.
Yeah, we did. I mean, look, I liked all of them. but we did a lot of back and forth of like starting new things, and then we had like 6 episodes of a D&D thing that then got cut off when another lockdown came in, and that was a whole year or so of like,
that was such a mess.
So messy. But we finally got around to launching Frontier in September 2nd, 2021, day before my birthday. So I guess that's like happy birthday to me. Here's some work. But yeah, we started with Homecoming. So this is the proper first episode of the series, really, where we sort of I was about to say where we meet all the characters, but Aurelia didn't appear till the second episode. But basically, this was my idea of like, well, it'd be good to sort of set this in stone as to like when the events of the series are happening. So I was like, it would be fun to kind of have the ship be part of like an event that's seen in the series, the TV series, as it is. And like, I rewatched the end of Voyager just to double check, and there is a Nebula class ship in that final fleet scene that's not named, and I was like, that's it, that's our ship, there we are,
that's ours now.
Yeah, yoink. And so just sort of there's a big fleet there, so I mean, even if like somebody crawls out, it's like, well, actually this, it doesn't matter, because like we're just off screen then, who cares, But basically, the ship is coming back from Earth. This is how we kind of meet it. It's coming back to Earth, following a long, vague, unexplained mission, which we never got into, and sort of putting in for a refit. We meet Murphy just as she's getting promoted again on the return to Earth, getting bumped back up to Lieutenant Commander. Well, not back up. You finally get your long overdue promotion.
Yep. Which I was not expecting in the first episode. I was like, oh, I'm the boss now. Oh, no.
Well, no, I think when I was kind of putting together my story notes for that one, obviously it's a couple of years ago at this point, but my memory was like, I know you'd said about like Murphy had like been passed over for the promotion, and when putting this together, sort of decided, okay, that some time has passed since then. And I kind of ran things through in my head, and I was like, well, you've got the kind of like, the view from management would be like, well, you handled yourself well in the crash thing. We know you're a good officer as it is. You put in a bit more time just kind of doing a good job. And I had the idea of like, well, okay, the previous security chief would be being transferred. I guess that was kind of put in afterwards as a sort of reason as to why Murphy's getting promoted as well. But like, I thought it would be kind of we want to start with like a sort of it being like not a rebirth for the ship, but like there's some big changes happening. But this is one of them.
Yeah. I
had the idea that like it would be interesting to kind of start with not everybody having been on the ship the whole time. That's why, well, when Aurelia comes in episode 2, you're replacing the retiring chief medical officer, and you're also being promoted into that job. So it was kind of like a new kind of jumping off point for the ship. Obviously, we hadn't really been with the ship before. We'd only had that one shot, but as a kind of like, we're joining the ship as things are changing kind of idea. Yeah, so that was kind of my thinking of that, but also with it being sort of tying it into the end of Voyager, have it be kind of like drawing a line under like, okay, this is the end of the Voyager era sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, our ship isn't involved in the other than appearing at the end of by our own claims, appearing at the end of Voyager. It just sort of was like the idea of like, okay, this part of Star Trek that we've seen before has kind of ended. Now we're kind of launching off into a new thing, so let's also make the ship would be having some changes. But I'm kind of waffling a bit here, but yeah. And then a year later, they put out Lower Decks and was like, "Hey, this is set 2 years after your series." I was like, fuck, yeah.
Fine.
They keep stealing my ideas as well.
We're an alternate universe.
Yeah,
it's okay.
That's true. They even put a Vulcan called Lynn in there. One, like, come on.
Yeah, that's all happening in the Prime universe. We're in the Prime Zero universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I like it because it's a good transition as well from you have like the ending of the Voyager era, as you say, and then our characters are coming out of the Dominion War, and the whole of Federation is going back to exploration and diplomatic issues than all-out war. So it makes sense as well that shift in the character would happen. But I was like, yay! I was like, oh! At first I was like, oh no, I'm going to be in charge. Oh no, I'm going to have to like read some stuff. Okay, but no, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like a sort of episode of kind of two halves, wasn't it? We had the kind of return to Earth, and then all the like, hey, we're having a party, and Murphy's been promoted, and it's sort of celebration kind of thing. And then I was like, well, we got to kick things off with a bit of action, so having to interrupt it immediately with like a red alert and it's the Borg, and and then I guess it was a little bit of a fake out of like, well, we know that Borg sphere got blown up by Voyager, so it wasn't really going to be a big threat there. But
I think there was a point in the recording of that where I twigged to what was going on. And I was trying so desperately not to kind of preemptively call anything out. I was trying to keep to the events that you had laid out for us.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because it kind of helped with the sort of
the sell of what was going on. And then when you get the reveal that it is actually picking up from the finale of Voyager. And I think it is a very clever starting point for the series, because, like with the Next Generation, that went on for 7 seasons, but prior to the final season, you had the first episode of DS9, you had that crossover meeting between Picard and Sisko, and it did feel like that you were seeing a direct continuation of what had come previously.
Yeah, definitely.
It fills that gap. And they did the same with DS9 and Voyager, didn't they? Because Voyager started at DS9.
Yeah.
Mark trying to sell some dodgy merch to Harry Kim, and I think Tom Paris stops him from making a huge financial error.
Well, that kind of like handing over thing was sort of in my mind when I was planning that, I think, as like, we can't do much, because I don't want to like go in and rip a bunch of audio clips from the episode to try and backfill dialogue, or anything like that, to sort of force some kind of connection with, obviously that would be like, there's breaking copyright, and then there's breaking copyright in using a bunch of audio clips that is pirating, Marquee, exactly. It's one thing to have like a background rumble when you guys are on the ship, and there's another thing to have audio clips from a Voyager episode, like
of Admiral Paris actually speaking.
So,
but that's good. That's good though, because it brings out the creative side in whoever's doing the voiceovers to put their own spin on it, and anybody that knows the franchise will know from listening what this event is linking to.
Yeah,
and that just makes it feel a lot more immersive.
Well, that was the plan anyway, so hopefully it worked off. I haven't had any feedback of people going like, "What the fuck were you guys thinking?" I don't know. As always, I don't know.
I think it set the tone quite nicely in terms of like its classic Trek setup, as you say, and the way that we've ended up playing this. It has been quite different to the other role-playing stuff that we've done, I think, in terms of like the scenes and the way that the pacing works. I think we've all got enough knowledge of Trek, perhaps, to be able to lean into that a bit, and as such, the way that we're letting scenes play out, it doesn't have to be decisive moments as long as it's additive towards like an end point where it all ties together, which was very much the way that they did it on the show.
I think with Star Trek, you put it into a game like this, and it actually fits quite well, because the way we play the game is we have the events that go on in our own departments, things happen on the bridge, things happen outside the ship, but it's a very social experience in a kind of Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop RPG realm. There's a lot more emphasis on the social aspect, because we are a crew. We're not just random adventurers that have banded together to take on a quest. We are actually essentially living on a starship and doing our duty, doing our jobs. But the social aspect around it, I think, is one of its biggest strengths, like it was in the TV show. You invest in the characters, you invest in what they're going through on a daily, yearly basis as the seasons go on. You get involved in their story arc, and we're able to develop that with guiding hand from the DM. I think it's quite unique as a tabletop game goes.
I'm being able to lean on other members of the crew as well, without it being like, oh, I need to go seek out a we need to go find a city to go get this. But, obviously in certain stories that may come in. I don't want to spoil or even put any thoughts of that in your head, going forward. I just mean like what we've done so far, we've very much been able to be like, okay, is there a historian on staff? Okay, yes, there is, because I'm not going to be like no with that kind of thing. But it makes sense to kind of have like you've got people on the ship who have got specialities that you guys don't have, and that's the whole kind of crew aspect of it is like, okay, we might be in charge of a department, or in like Johnny's case, like a little bit lower on the rung, but you've got people under you, which we're sort of bringing a little, well, no spoilers for season 2, but we're maybe going to be exploring that a little bit more. So there's other people to kind of lean on, and that outside of just the core party. You're not going to be so far stumped in like a situation of like, oh well, we don't know what we're doing with this, because there's ways to kind of Star Trek your way around a problem of like, oh, let's see what engineering can do, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite a different experience to D&D sort of thing.
In many ways, the ship is almost our city.
Yeah,
and we go to other places, and that's kind of us gallivanting outside the city.
Basically, yeah, that's what it feels like, and it's we are world building for the ship as we go around speaking to other characters, other NPCs, and with AJ, as we started the game with us and a few core NPCs, including Captain Collins and various other people in the departments, but we've gradually, over the course of the first season into the second one, you've asked for ideas on new NPCs. I mean, there's a few episodes that you put out where you got us to talk about who would you interact with as your character on the ship, who would you be working closely with, and I think that's a good way to run a game like this, which works in that kind of social atmosphere where you're all working together. We're world building internally, and that just makes it feel a lot more immersive.
Yeah, I mean, even from like a DMing standpoint, it's like helped me to have. I've got a giant spreadsheet, which I don't know if I always keep in the edit of me going, I will look at the spreadsheet. I don't think I do most times, but like in every recording, I'm going like, okay, I'm just going to scroll down. But it's been helpful to me to like have like a big list of NPCs that we've maybe only talked to once or have been referred to just be like, okay, no, this person is here. Now, even if they're not like a big part of the scene or whatever, it's like a name we've heard before and it's been sort of, I mean, it's coming in like story form. I mean, we'll get to it a little bit later in this, with where you were kind of looking at how many Trill are on board, and I was able to say like, okay, well, we've got this character and we've got this character, and we know that I've got them on the list kind of thing. I'm not just like pulling numbers out of thin air for that sort of thing. So it's it's been interesting to kind of add characters to the sort of world and have it be like, well, these hang together logically, kind of thing. Like Arila's head of medical, so in my head I was like, well, we'll need a counsellor, we'll need an assistant, chief medical officer, and then we're just sort of building it out from other doctors and nurses and things, and then sort of before we know it, I've got a spreadsheet here with like 25 names on it, kind of thing, which it's helpful because then we can just be like, okay, in any situation I can be like, well, I know who we got to work with, kind of thing, and yeah. So speaking of, actually, we'll keep this. We'll roll into what episode 2 of the season was, which was final preparation. So there was a little bit of a time jump of only a couple of weeks, I think. It's even in the description. As you return from 2 weeks short leave on Earth, we meet Dr. Arila as you're arriving on board from your previous posting of, I think it was the Korolev. That is in my head, because I vaguely remember being like, yeah, that's a cool name, and then looking it up and being like, oh, that's a whole type of ship that is like a fan-made thing and stuff. And so I getting way into it was like way too far into it was like, oh, I need to make sure I have the right details for this and things, and it never came up. So as per usual, but that was our introduction to Dr. Arila. Was as you were coming on board, we had the early meeting between Dr. Arila and Johnny, and that was fun. I think.
Oh yeah. The Johnny tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good laugh.
I think, yeah, we have had a couple of Johnny tours throughout the first series, didn't we? Whenever you were kind of given somebody to show around.
Yeah, it was kind of an opportunity to ramp up his earnestness, let's say, and show that he's not quite a bootlicker, but he's definitely a fanboy of Starfleet and wants to really find people and share that love and passion for it.
Yeah. I think the other... So, yeah, Arila then, I think, did you then met the captain? It was a kind of like... It was slightly more informal, kind of like, welcome aboard, sort of thing. Kind of letting you get settled at your own pace sort of thing into sick bay. And then that was where we met the first couple of members of your staff. So that was, I think, that was the beginning of fleshing out that bit of the spreadsheet.
Yes.
But, yeah. And then those members have come back, actually, haven't they? Because one of them was in the Ensign Games, and then, yeah.
Yes, yeah, they have.
I think, I mean, I haven't got my in-depth notes on this, but the other main thing that happened in that was kind of setting the stage for, like, the whole, like, main plot, really, which we are still just getting into, I think, with season 2, which is that the sort of giving of the mission. Okay, so here's my bullet points for the first two episodes then, because this was what I've got as my sort of story arc, mini arc 1 prologue. Bullet points are Captain's Log, approaching Earth, docking complete, Ray given the bridge, Johnny at Tactical. I don't remember Johnny being at Tactical ever. So whether that made it into the final episode, I don't think so. I think Murphy was in there.
The guy was at Tactical, yeah.
I've got you written here as Lieutenant Lyra, which is not your Lyra Murphy, but these must be fairly early notes. The date on these notes is 12th of April 2021, which is a good 6 months before the episode went live. But then we did have quite a long run in before it was released, didn't we? So yeah. I'll just say Lieutenant Murphy instead of Lieutenant Lyra, because I'm just going to confuse myself. Lieutenant Murphy and Lieutenant Commander Grant called to Captain's Ready Room. Murphy promoted, offered Chief of Security role. So this is all pretty much playing out in the order that I think happened in the episode. Dr. Callis' retirement party. System-wide red alert received. Other senior staff returned to bridge. Sphere battle and everything. Sphere destroyed by USS Voyager. Sensors identify USS Voyager. Voyager escorted to Earth. Time skip 2 weeks. Obviously, this is the... Mm-hmm. This is without the knowing... Because we did it all in one session, this first sort of thing, didn't we? Which doesn't happen these days. These days, I'm just like... Yeah, we're doing hour-and-a-half long episodes because, lots of things happened. Time skip 2 weeks. I've then got written Captain's Log 2, so I may have already been thinking there'll be a cliffhanger ending, or at least like a episode jump there. Dr. Arila arrival. Then I've just got a question here. What has the rest of the crew been doing during their shore leave? Which to me implies I wanted to ask you and sit there quietly for a minute or two. Which I do sometimes build those in because I'm like, well, not so much like to build myself in a break, but more like it's things that shouldn't be up to me kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's giving the characters some autonomy.
I then got new crew arrive. Now, only one of these survived as new crew, but they were both characters that we did meet. I've got written in here Lieutenant Commander Fell, Ray's second, who we then, I think I changed that to her being on the ship anyway, ahead of time, and Ensign Bonge. So I'm assuming, I can't remember, we must have met Bonge in this second episode then, if this is on the list here. Who's been I think a bit of a favourite character. I like to go back to Bonge.
Absolutely.
I love Bonge.
I think the reason that, as he's written second there, that implies to me, like knowing how I write things out when I do notes like this, it implies to me I put him there as a joke. And then he's this always happens. I throw in a joke character and then they become like the favourite character. But yeah.
He's just so likable.
Yeah, he's Bach who listens, she loves him. She absolutely adores him.
It's a kind of a fun voice to do, even if it does it sort of destroys my throat a little bit to do it. I have to kind of talk like this and hey, yeah. It's sort of, it's not the most comfortable voice to be doing. But the idea of like, hey, he's kind of a Ferengi who's sort of a little bit like Nog from DS9 in that he's more interested in doing Starfleet stuff and things, but also he's he's a bit more of an engineering nerd, and
he's curious. He's so curious about things. He's just adorable.
And it's kind of his first time kind of getting out into the galaxy and things as well. But then also I've sort of dropped off a few of the kind of Ferengi sort of traits. Like I haven't had him. I didn't want to be sitting here having Bond be all sexist and things, because that's no fun for me to do either. Like, you know, and I think
he's an enlightened Ferengi.
Yeah, and I think it makes the character a little bit more fun, and maybe why he's become a bit of a favorite is because he's just like, innocent's the wrong word, but he's just kind of like, he's kind of wide-eyed and open and like, hey, yeah, we're doing this, and hey, we're gonna go, yeah, I'm gonna get drunk, and yeah, we'll do this, and yeah, you know,
kind of, he's sweet and enthusiastic.
Yeah.
You haven't last outposted him. that first take on the Ferengi.
It's rough. It's rough as hell.
It's rough, and it's very. It can be very uncomfortable to sit through.
Yeah.
Even Armin Shimmerman, who played one of the 4 original Ferengi, said that later on. And he said that Quark actually got better going on. The Ferengi became a better.
I mean, it's tough going. It's like the early stuff of the Ferengi is clearly very like, oh, this is Gene Roddenberry writing his fetishes into the show again, kind of.
Laser whips.
It's very obvious.
Yeah,
there are whips. They don't make their women wear clothing. Oh, here we go.
So yeah, I'm happy to like make Bond a bit more likable at the cost of some certain characterization that's, been.
But I think that's also the great thing about Star Trek, especially in DS9, because you see through Quark and Nog that development.
Yeah,
that is possible with their species. They can change and be more accepting. It's
culture rather than being determinative.
Yes.
Yeah. If the environment can change anyone, you live in an environment for long enough and you start to mimic the behaviours that you see. And for Nog, he's grown up with Jake and, Cisco there, and also Quark, and he's always being pulled between the two ways of being, and he becomes an exceptional member of the crew and becomes a more enlightened Ferengi. I mean, by the time we get to Discovery, there's a ship named after him in the 31st century. So
we've had a couple of detail, not a lot, but a couple of little details about Bond's home life come out. I think just in passing, and I think that I vaguely remember a holo program where he wanted to be able to beat his father and brothers at cards at one point. And I think it said about his dad owned a hotel or his dad owned a casino or something like that. So I think with that, I was kind of trying to imply he's kind of the youngest son who really didn't fit in with the business, the family business at all, and but liked engineering stuff. And when after Rom became Nagus and Nog had led the way towards Starfleet taking Ferengi, he kind of was like, I will go do that, as a kind of I can escape and not have to be part of this casino business sort of thing. Yeah, I think that's pretty much as far as I've gotten really in terms of character backstory for Bond, but we don't need a huge amount really for him to get going. And there's sort of this subplot has been, I mean, we're not tying this into episode 2 at all, but this subplot has developed him and Ensign Faria are kind of seeing each other sort of thing, or at least
it's adorable. It's so cute.
Yep.
It's just the two engineers, and they like each other, and they went on a date in the Arboretum that Johnny interrupted one time, and and then they've been, whenever we've seen that group, they've been kind of hanging out and stuff, and I've just, we've kept it as a sort of little background black-brown storyline that's going on.
They're the two little shy nerdy lovebirds in the background.
Yeah.
They're very sweet. You check in on them every now and again.
Every once in a while, we just get a little kind of glimpse, and I mean, no spoilers. We may see them fairly early on in season 2 as well.
I did like that little kind of third wheel interruption where Johnny is basically the boil getting in the way of Amy and Jake.
Oh yeah, and relishing it for a moment, but not being too much of a fool, I suppose, and kind of weighing in.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember exactly which episode that was on, but like the vibe of like you walked up, clearly clocked what was actually going on, and then you're like, I'm going to introduce myself as Bonge's cool friend.
Let's see if he's embarrassed. Let's meet his reaction.
Bonge totally not thinking that. He's like, dude, you're not trying to steal my girl already.
It was more like a, come on, man, be cool kind of thing. to just jump back to the end of episode 2 then. So we kind of learned like the overarching kind of mission for the ship, really, which is you're being sent to the Bermuda cluster, which is a sort of unexplored area of the galaxy on the edge of Federation space, which has been cut off up till now by like some quite sort of unsurmountable subspace storms that are sort of enclosing the whole cluster, the source of which is unknown, and possibly is one of the reasons you're going there, is to find out what's the deal with that. But the storms have been kind of losing a bit of their intensity over the last few years, and Starfleet's finally at the point now that kind of Dominion War's over and refocusing on exploration again, is to sort of send an expedition, and that's going to be led by the Tenzing alongside the USS Auckland and the USS Nelson. So the kind of overarching plot of season 1 was like, the ship is going to Deep Space 3 to meet these 2 other ships, and then we're going to go off on the mission. That's kind of, and stuff happens along the way. It's kind of I guess what we could say is season 1, really, isn't it? Because with season 2, I mean, there's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. We've done a couple of sessions of that, and we're still not quite in the cluster yet.
Almost there.
But that's kind of, that was the split for me. It was like, well, season 1 would be this sort of like assembling, getting to where you need to be, and like assembling the thing, and you're going to run into a couple of things on the way, and stuff happens. And then season 2 going forward, which is into this mission. So we've got our main thing. By the end of episode 2, we have our main goal for the ship, which is to explore this the Bermuda cluster. And the episode kind of ends with like leaving space dock, I guess. You know, you've got a couple of weeks it's going to take you at least to, I think I've got it somewhere, 3 weeks, did I say? It was a couple of years ago. It's a couple of weeks trip at warp to get to Deep Space 3 to meet your other members of the expedition, and and we leave space dock there at the end of episode 2. I mean, as a sort of first little arc, I'm pretty happy with the how those first 2 episodes kind of hang together. We did it all in one session of recording, didn't we? And I think I split it down the middle.
Yeah.
But yeah, just as a kind of setting the stage sort of thing, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it worked well.
Yeah. So going forward, we then hit our first sort of idea of mine was to have a couple of like, I guess they would be episodes of the show if we were watching TNG or one of those, where it's like, okay, what are we running into this week? Except it's like, well, we know we're on the way to Deep Space 3, but we're running into it on the way, sort of thing. And this is the mini arc 2. I've got it labelled as Aurora, but really the idea behind these group of episodes, which actually ended up being 6 episodes basically of the show, was the ship did a little bit of a detour to go look at a once every 20 years, was it, or something? This is hang on, I've got my setup there. Every 28 years I've got written here. But then also in the same sentence I have every 32 years. So, look, whatever ended up in the final edit is what it is, but it's something like that. Once every, I wanted it to have been a while, but there's a rare stellar event because the planet has like it's a planet in a star system that has an sort of unusually strong magnetic field. So once every, roughly 30 years, whatever, I'm not going to.
Taking into account stellar drift, it could be between 28 and 32,
It could be. It's not. There's definitely a number there somewhere, but I don't know what it is. But so you're sort of stopping off to have a look at this sort of Aurora activity, and the sort of the in orbit, the kind of like, I guess if this was an episode of the TV show, the stinger before like into credits was like, so we're picking up some unusual things on the unusual elements on the planet, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of the sort of event, there's these planet-wide storms, and the decisions made to send down an away team, conveniently consisting of you four, to the surface to kind of check this out before the storms really hit. So yeah, it was a sort of a first kind of way to get off the ship, I suppose, in the show. But we get down to the planet, and it's kind of obvious straight away that, like, the storms are going to hit a little earlier than before, and but you have your readings, and you sort of start trekking across the trekking across the landscape to try and to find what these things are.
Enterprise under Captain Kirk. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, I was expecting it. I had, before we kind of go into what happened on the planet, I had an idea at this point. Like, if one of you were like, well, I should stay here and monitor things, I totally had a backup way of running the series, running this story without you all being together. It would have been a little bit of jumping around, but like I had like a whole sort of things that are going on the ship while you're on the planet sort of thing running in the background, which I don't think was like fully news really. Like when you get back in contact with the ship later on, they are like, stuff's been happening, but we're here, kind of thing. But essentially, the like while you're on the planet, the magnetic field is higher than it was. The more powerful than was previously expected, and the ship was falling out of orbit. They managed to detect and deal with that and go into a higher orbit, and everything's fine. But turns out the stuff that you detected on the planet was a different ship that had been there doing the exact same observations the last time that the sort of cycle, the solar cycle thing happened. But we'll get to that, because before that we have an incident that happens where running into some local flora that react to sound, but also shoot out sort of neuro like darts. This may be our first roll of the game that goes wrong, because Murphy, you took a couple of darts to the face and the arm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I really did. I made a terrible decision and paid for it. So karma got me.
It was quite funny though.
It was funny. It was funny.
It was one of the things where I was like, as a DM, I put it in there as like, we'll see what happens. You know, we had them go off the first time, sort of implying, you know, with enough of breadcrumbs, like, oh, they reacted to sound. And then, because of course this is a comedy show, rather than as serious, not quite as serious a Star Trek as it sometimes is. Of course, the comedy beat happens of like, oh, so somebody says something loud again. I think at least that's what happened.
I think so. Yeah, it was. Yeah. We weren't supposed to make noise, and I made noise and got shot in the face.
Yeah.
For my effort.
I've got a feeling that in this, as I remember, in this scene, I said something positive to Johnny, and then immediately said something that put some doubt into him. I think it was when the attack was happening with the spines flying all over the place. I said something like, "Yeah, you know, nice effort, but you know, as long as you don't get yourself killed, we'll all be fine," or something like that. And I think Johnny was like, "Oh,
don't jinx it."
That? Yeah.
But don't talk about getting killed. Come on.
Yeah, I know. I think that was Ray's way of kind of just testing the water with the newbie.
Yeah.
Seeing how he reacts.
I've again only got my notes from before we recorded it for this, so I think this ended up being one of those things that happened a little bit sort of, I don't know what order it happened in, kind of thing. Because in my original notes I had it as, well, this did happen. You got attacked by 3 carnivorous creatures. But in my notes, I had it that firing the phasers will cause plants to react because of the noise. But that came, obviously, due to actions, came up before then. Yeah. But yeah, as the kind of storm was kind of growing, you were heading towards the readings, and you realised you were being stalked by kind of 3. I guess in my head I had them as sort of like panther, dog, weird Final Fantasy monster sort of hybrid type things.
Yeah, that was the impression I got.
Yeah, like cheetahs.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I was doing when it comes to coming up with creatures is slamming together various animals to make something sci-fi. But yeah, I think that's sort of what I was picturing, because they wanted to be sort of stalking through the forest, and they were going to be dangerous, basically, as like a sort of, oh no, we need to not get eaten by these things. But at the same time as you're being sort of stalked through the woods by them, Murphy's arm has stopped working because of these barbs. Yep. And you kind of, I think, sort of found that like the plan that you came up with was like, okay, we're going to find like somewhere we can sort of defend and hide. But really what you ended up doing was sort of getting into like a little hollow among some trees and sort of just sitting there with your guns out, really.
Waited for them to come to us.
Yeah. There was a whole thing about modifying pattern enhancers, I think. That
went very badly.
Yeah. That didn't really work, if I remember. Like, it kind of stopped them from seeing your heat signature as well, because I think I had it as like that's how they were hunting.
Yeah, we tried to retro engineer the pattern enhancers to kind of mask us from them.
Yeah, which is, it's a good Star Trek solution, but then it meant that you then couldn't use them later to beam out. So
yeah, it wasn't we didn't really think that far ahead.
No. But then we got introduced to a mysterious hooded figure who helped you drive off the creatures, who introduced themselves as Jovar, and they were a human around 19 years old. They hadn't seen any other people before other than their parents and another character who we met briefly after this. And they took you back to their house, as they called it. And as you were approaching, you realised after passing a warp nacelle embedded in the ground that this is the remains of the crashed starship. You went inside, you met the family. There was the two parents who had been like the helmsman and navigator on this ship, and there was also a Vulcan there called Tanen, who was a little bit older. You had a nice dinner out of the storm.
Yep.
They sort of told you their story about crashing during the last of the last time this sort of magnetic event was happening. There used to be much more. There were 8 survivors originally, and then over the years some of them, they'd all basically got down to 3 of that original 8, and then the 2 of them at some point got together and had a child along the way. But we sort of learned a little bit about them. Johnny got I remember sort of, I can't remember exactly what was said, but you got like a kind of you had a private moment with the Vulcan at one point, I think, when you were looking for equipment, and which sort of was a little bit of a kind of poke at your kind of dogmatic, like, Starfleet hoorah sort of thing. It was a little bit of like have you tried looking at this point from this point of view sort of moment, I think.
Yeah, whether that had any lasting impact, I don't think it did necessarily, to be honest.
It may have just, I can't remember the exact context of that. I just remember it being like the first time that we'd sort of poked a bit of had an attempt at poking a hole in Johnny's bravado, I guess. But really, what happened next is you kind of waited the storm out, and then you got picked up by shuttle at the end of once the storms were clear, and you rescued this family and Vulcan, and on return to the ship, the Vulcan was revealed to be the long-lost father of the ship's first officer, who I realise we haven't mentioned up till now. To Lynn, who I think we must have met her in the first episode. I can't remember exactly when we did, but so that was a bit of a, that was a sort of, I think that wasn't a last second kind of throwing that in. It was planned. It was one of those ones where I was like, it felt like, okay, well, we're ending this little mini arc, but I got to throw a little bit of an extra kind of extra character beat in there, is how it kind of felt.
Little extra nugget.
Yeah, I love to end on a cliffhanger, and that was the kind of, it was less of a cliffhanger, more of like a oh shit kind of moment to end on. But yeah, I liked that storyline. I think it was fun. We had some fun moments in it.
Yeah,
I think it did go on a little longer than I'd originally planned. It was 6 episodes. I've got no problem with that. It was, I like the story. It's good. But I think my original thought when I was sort of planning it was like, oh, well, we're going to quite quickly get to the crash site. The encounter with the creatures is going to be, fairly quick. And going by what I've written in my notes here, I think where it was going to be a fairly quick thing, but firing the phasers is going to be when you were going to figure out the barbs thing. And I'd kind of written in a thing there about maybe one of you get hit. So I think in my head, I was thinking how it was going to go was like, you're going to get in this encounter, deal with the, creatures, but maybe someone will get hit by a barb. And that's when the figure's going to appear and it's going to be like, you shouldn't be making noise. The barbs are hit. It's sort of... Yeah. In my head, I think that was going to be the cliffhanger rather than like the cliffhanger of the 3rd episode or something of it. But yeah, no, I'm happy with how it shakes out because nothing ever really, it's tough to sort of plan a show like this. Really, I can have my kind of ideas of like what the story is, and then things always go differently. So yeah,
I think one of the things that affects the speed at which we move is that like trying to keep in mind the idea of like keeping pace with a Star Trek episode. You're seeing all of that. Everything's implicit in terms of visuals, whereas we're describing everything. So it's no wonder it takes 6 episodes, especially with combat and things like that thrown in, to like a moment where like a character things that we did in that episode, like throwing the stone at the like creature to try and distract it. Like that took a little while to do rolls and all that kind of stuff. But in the show, that's like a second.
Yeah. There was like discussion, and it was at least sort of 5 to 10 minutes of recording.
That's it. And that's just a function of the role playing. But
yeah,
I think that it's still, hopefully, the way that we do things does still capture that pacing. If you try and like truncate it in your mind, so to speak.
Yeah, the 6 episodes of this might have been like a 2-parter of the show, or or even a 1 episode kind of thing. But yeah. As I say, I've got no problems with it. It's I really like that story. I think it was kind of a fun sort of way of getting you guys off of the ship and have it. It was a kind of Star Trek-y thing. You ran into some marooned people. There was some science stuff going on, which could have, and obviously was sort of faded as to being the background rather than the we're down here to. You guys weren't there really to observe the phenomenon on the planet. But that was going on in the ship, so it very well could have been a thing where Ray had said, "Well, you don't need me on the ground; I'll be up here doing this," and yeah. And I wonder, that possibly might have gone the way it did because we're so used to like, well, we're doing role playing, we all sit together as a group, which is totally, that's totally fair. That's all as a, thing, and that's just how it shook out. But it's one of those things that in my head, like if it was an episode of the show, it would be cutting back to the problems on the ship as the other half of the story, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so like I say, that was our kind of first other mini arc, and we kind of rolled straight on from that then. Actually, has anybody got any other thoughts about that, I suppose, before I roll on? But
I'd say I think it was a good first encounter to get to grips with the system. I mean, for me personally, it was the first game that I've ever really done. It was the first 2D20 title I've ever been involved in, so it was interesting to be in a situation in game where dice rolls were required, and it was a good learning experience really I'd say for anyone new to it. Your first encounter is always a good learning point, and I thought that was a very good, very Star Trek way of dipping our toes into how missions and things could potentially go when we're on the ground.
Yeah,
I thought it went really well, and there was mystery, there was intrigue, and there was danger in it as well, which always helps when you've got a Star Trek episode that is set on a planet or they're away from the ship. There's always an element of danger to it. So I think for a starting point, I think it worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to put it in that you guys wouldn't be able to beam back straight away without pattern enhancers, and then you took that a step further by blowing up the pattern enhancers. So
well,
so it worked out interestingly, I think. On top of that, to then have obviously then Murphy's having medical problems after getting hit by a bunch of neuro darts and things, so it was good that we sort of had a bit of an element of peril there. You're being hunted by creatures and things, and yeah, it had it all. It had action, it had comedy, It had crashed starships. You know, it was No, I'll say
there was a reunion.
Yeah,
there was a reunion that we weren't expecting.
Yeah. I'll say as a sort of opening kind of main arc, I couldn't be happier with that. I think.
I just love Murphy's situation. Arm going numb, slurring her words, starting to sound Welsh more than anything else.
So, rolling on then into our second storyline. I kind of was like, as I was kind of planning out things that we could be doing in this first season, like I wanted to do the going down to a planet, but then I also wanted, which is obviously the first one had sort of sciencey stuff and like dealing with nature type things, and then this one, the other kind of flip side of what a lot of episodes are is like, oh no, we have the dealing with an alien civilization type thing. And I like the idea of like a first contact gone slightly wrong.
Yes,
because we get a few episodes of various shows where there's first contact going on, and it always goes wrong in Voyager, doesn't it? But like, I mean, the idea of like, okay, it's happening here, and then it comes out that like, oh wait, hold on, wait a minute, this maybe. Oh, maybe we shouldn't have turned up and dealt with these,
There's all the mystery in that arc as well, with why the plans for this ship that turned up were very, very similar to the design of the Phoenix.
Yeah, I did kind of do there was a little bit of sort of mystery box storytelling there from me, which is a little bit J.J. Abrams of me.
Yeah, but it's effective. It was effective though.
Yeah. Hey, look,
everyone playing the game knows the history of Phoenix, and we all just went, what?
And then the mystery is still out there because as soon as we finished this episode, nobody brought it up again. But like we didn't resolve the mystery basically, which I think I like that as an ending of it as well. Of like, this is maybe something to come back to. Maybe some information will appear at some point that will give you some clues to what happened here. Because not everything. It's sometimes better to not wrap everything up in like a neat package at the end of it.
Yeah. You need an excuse to come back to a story arc later on so you can progress things naturally. Yeah.
But in general terms, though, so the second story arc, we have a signal detected of like a warp engine in a nearby system, one that is meant to be only inhabited by pre-warp species. So this sort of rings all the, hey, they've invented warp travel, we can go talk to them now kind of bells. You go and sort of check it out, and they have a ship. The warp ship that you intercept is suspiciously similar in design to Zephram Cochrane's Phoenix ship, Earth's first warp ship. And you come to find out, like, down to like pretty much identical, almost design of most of it. You meet a pair of aliens who are from a race called the Draterans, and it took me a couple of episodes to really lock down the two voices because they're not very. There's a lot of me talking to myself in these episodes, I think, which does tend to happen sometimes. And I'm hoping with season 2 we can get a few more people to voice NPCs. But yeah, essentially what's happened here is that they have followed instructions in a religious document of theirs to get this warp ship off the ground, and their society is very sort of, how to put it, kind of, I don't know, quite very strict religiously, and they're the sort of sect that they're members of is kind of considered sort of radical. They believe in that they have their own sort of extra document that they've sort of followed, which turns out to be this one that's they've gotten the instructions for a warp vessel from, which it's all kind of, it's different up to a certain point, but then on looking at the document which they've brought with them, there is sort of signs of outside interference, which is sort of what complicates the whole thing, because there is a note in English in it, which I actually have my notes here. The flame of the gods, covetously hoarded by self-proclaimed superior cultures, now shared freely as it always should have been. And it's sort of signed with there's a like crude little drawing of the Starfleet logo next to it, which sort of was like a oh shit kind of moment of like, so they didn't really invent this, did they? You know, which I think that ended up being a cliffhanger moment in that. But yeah, there was a lot of sort of talk of like, well, we need to bring you back to the planet, really, and investigate kind of where this came from. And you kind of... This is where we had a lot of Johnny getting to do his Johnny tours again. And they were given like a sort of a little bit of a primer as to what the Federation is. I think concurrent to you realizing that maybe, this is a preemptive first contact situation, really. At least that's my memory of it. Like, you gave them a lot of information up front, which maybe was like, okay, maybe we should have... I don't know. What happened. But, yeah. But yeah, over the course of a couple of days, you kind of slowly cruise back to the planet while you're trying to decide what to do. And the captain is talking to Starfleet Command, being like, look, this isn't ideal. You know, this clearly isn't a regular first contact kind of situation. These people shouldn't really know about us yet and stuff like this. And you get permission to go down to the planet in disguise and try and figure out where this information came from and try and limit the damage, because it's become sort of clear that somebody has interfered here. As you arrive, though, at the planet, you detect military craft being launched towards the kind of home city of your two passengers, and that they have been... news comes to you that they've been declared to be sort of excommunicated from the religion, and that involves being melted with nuclear bombs as well. So there's kind of a ticking clock here on like, well, we need to figure out what's going on. But also you then have the conundrum of like, there's a lot of people here. Are we going to let them get nuked? Technically, we should not interfere anymore, kind of thing. You get down into below the temple in the town and get your scans, figure out where's, you know, where this has come from. You've found, I think, some chronometric particles or radiation, inferring something funny is going on here time wise. And that was about the extent of it in terms of the science. But the real sort of conundrum was like arguing with the captain, who agreed with you in principle, but like his hands were a little bit tied with Starfleet, saying like, look, you know, if we're following the Prime Directive, we ought to just sort of let this happen, kind of thing. Eventually leading to you convincing him that, look, this isn't right to let this happen either. You know, they're being nuked because of something that could be connected to us. And the captain said, well, okay, I'll take responsibility for this then. And all of the people who were in the temple were beamed to an uninhabited continent in the south of the planet where they could hide out and start something new. It's going to be tough, but like at least they're alive, sort of thing. And you got out of there just in time to not get a nuclear bomb to the face. And that was kind of the end of that was kind of the story arc. But we yet another sort of shaking of Johnny's sort of thing there.
Resolve.
Yeah, well, at least Johnny's maybe view of Starfleet idealism, I suppose, where
realizing that it doesn't always work out, and then being witness to that. He kind of obviously read things, but I think that first time of being there and not being able to find a solution, or at least not an ideal one.
It's from a gameplay standpoint for that episode where we went to the planet. We weren't all on the planet for that, as I remember.
No, you were still on the ship. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, so that was the first instance we had where the core team was split between the away team on the planet and someone still on the ship communicating down. That was another interesting Star Trek wrinkle that we added in to the story there.
Well, and it let you sort of kind of help from orbit sort of thing, where by using your skills on the checks that were being done on the ship, I think, which was
that's right. So I was on the ship being the kind of the eye in the sky, to assist the awaiting. And again, it just shows the strength of this game. You know, you've got so many situations you can mix and match where people are, and you still get a good Star Trek style encounter out of it.
I mean, that's something I wanted to kind of introduce, I think, with this, is the idea of like, I mean, at the end of the day, you guys can do what you want in terms of like who goes where and things, but the idea of like, we don't always have to be like, okay, all 4 characters are going everywhere together, sort of thing. And you know, this is where the Star Trekness of it comes in, because as you say, it's like, it's a very Star Trek thing to have, you know, you're the science officer doing science things that on the ship, because that's where you're needed the most. And again, I didn't want to sort of push you guys to like, okay, no, we always need to split the party, or we never split the party, one or the other. You know, going where you need to be is kind of the name of the game with some of these things, sort of thing. And I just wanted to kind
adapt to the situation.
Yeah. I said it before, I think we're very used to, you know, with like D&D and other stuff like that, splitting the party is like usually the worst thing but, you know, things aren't going to work out when you do that. But that's not necessarily the case here. Sometimes the best place to be is like, well, no, I have access to all the ship systems and I can help things from up here. Because I think in that one you ended up being the one who was doing a lot of the work with the transporters and that, for helping get the people out and stuff, which is, you know, it was
the coordinating in that,
the beam up sites and everything.
It
had stakes as well. That arc, compared to the Aurora arc, this one had stakes.
I wanted that to be the case, you know, a tough decision at the end kind of thing. It was, well, not necessarily just at the end, like, you know, but putting like a decision in front of you that didn't have like a clear way through. And I think the way that you came up with, like, because that wasn't, it was you guys who came up with like, well, no, why don't we put them somewhere else rather than...
because the moral question of letting these people die because it was our fault as well. Ultimately, the responsibility was ours to deal with, and I loved the tension. The tension was so good. Just that countdown as well with the missiles incoming, or the ships incoming with the missiles.
Yeah, it gave us suspense.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it was quite a stressful. I remember it being quite a stressful session at the end there.
Yes, yes, it was.
Like, even from my perspective of just being like, okay, well, I've put what in front of you what needs to be, and I'm like sitting here going like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like, because like, not in terms of like I've given them bad options, but like none of the options are perfect, kind of thing. And I was just like interested to see what you did with them, and then in terms of like, because I was following what the captain would have to say in that sort of thing of like, well, no, like I don't disagree with you, but like my hands are tied as well, and like, you know, and sort of letting you guys be the ones to sort of put forward a different plan, and that I hadn't put forward, you know, as an option from, you know, your commanding officer at all, and then convince them of it. You know, that was quite interesting to me. But like having the ticking clock, like I say, that was. Yeah, it was a stressful session in a good way though, like not in like coming out of it going, oh, that was tough, but like a sort of, okay, this was a bit more heavy than we usually go, you know, sort of thing. Because as you say, they're quite heavy stakes here. There was like, you're like, well, if we do one thing's wrong, several hundred people or more are about to be nuked, and that's not great, you know.
There was no good answer out of the two that were completely evident, which is why finding something that didn't seem to be an option was the only way to get around it, really.
Yeah, and I'm really pleased with that. Like I say, I'm really pleased with that ending, really, because it really sort of. Well, it was a very Star Trek ending as well. Be like, no, we're going to beam the whole town out, like kind of thing. But also in terms of like how a lot of, you know, Star Trek has these sort of moral quandaries and things, and there are some, you know, shades of grey and like tough decisions, and the sort of the question of like, well, if we stick to the rules, one thing could happen. If we don't stick to the rules, okay, but like what precedent does that set and things like this, you know. Interesting stuff to sort of look at.
Yeah, and then the mystery obviously wasn't solved.
No.
We never did discover how the idea of the Phoenix came to them. And I mean, I don't know what's going to happen going forward, but if we ever go back to that planet on the way out from the Bermuda cluster, maybe things will have advanced and we'll end up running into the next bit of the mystery. But it's good to have a mystery as long as you recognise that it is a mystery in storytelling, and at some point something else crops up to kind of unravel a little bit more of it.
Yeah, I mean, that was very much in my head when we finished. I was like, well, we haven't really got a clear answer of what happened here. Obviously, there's you'd gotten the readings that implied some kind of time manipulation's gone on somewhere. You've got the document of their... I think you held on to their document, actually. You definitely held on to their ship. Like, you have all the stuff.
To prevent the same thing from happening again.
Yeah.
Did we forward that? Did we forward it on to Starfleet Command in the end? Or did we not cover that? I can't recall.
I don't think you were specifically keeping it a secret. You probably put a report on through. It might have been one of those unsaid things of like when we got to Deep Space 3, a proper report was made. And like, in terms of like what had happened, it was definitely like, the captain had to explain his actions. I remember that. Like, you weren't in the scene with him, but like, I think it was sort of said like he's been in conference with the Starfleet Command for quite a while over what happened, and like there's not going to be any fallout for you guys, but I think the implication being of like he's stuck his neck out here kind of thing.
Yeah
But in terms of like you still have their ship down in Docking Bay 2.
Yes, so that's something we can potentially poke at later.
Yeah, you have their what they called the Speaking Stone, which was they've been told like this is how you speak to the gods, but it's a bit of dilithium that powered the ship. And yeah, like I say, if you haven't got the document yourselves, you've definitely got a copy of it. So like you have all the things here, and you have your readings from that. I think we just then after the conclusion, we just sort of moved on, and not a lot. We didn't sort of look back at it too much. But it's all still there, and as I say, new things may come to light. This isn't a finished,
Because some episodes aren't always... Some, like, actual Star Trek episodes don't always have a resolution either. Sometimes it's left as a mystery for some things.
The first appearance of the Borg, that didn't really end with any satisfying conclusion, except the Q got them out of there, and they lost 18 crew members, and it left you on the idea that the Borg know about the Federation now, and they will be coming, and then end of the next season, Best of Both Worlds happens.
Yeah.
So it's that progression of a story, dripping bits of it over the course of time.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I putting this in to specifically set up like I'm not confirming or denying anything, but like this wasn't like step one of like a good, and then 10 episodes down the line it all goes to hell kind of thing. It was just I liked the idea of like, well, you're not going to get immediately all the answers straight away to some things.
Oh, yeah. But I think mysteries don't have to be like you start with something that's unknown and then, oh my god, everything's going bad.
Yeah.
It can be, oh, we're learning a bit more, and then by the end the party is more enlightened to events that went on, and then everything starts to make sense that they experienced before because the context is revealed later on. So it can be a high-stakes mystery. It can be low-stakes. It could just be a mystery of unknown knowledge.
Yeah.
You know? But it's good to have something like that because it's quintessential Star Trek.
Yeah. And as I say, I like the idea that you guys still have the stuff. So, I don't know, like you haven't just handed it off.
I should hope not. We found it. It's ours.
I'm claiming this ship.
Yeah.
But
I'm as keepers, Admiral.
We'll see where we go with it. That could be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the back half then of the season, really, because I was going to say the third story arc, but really it's kind of a bunch of episodes that sort of hang together in that you're all on Deep Space 3 for them, but it's 7, 8, 9, 10. It's 11 episodes, the back half of the series, which can be really described as like you make it to your destination. Ray has a breakdown. We have the Ensign Games, which is sort of the the sort of a bit of friendly competition between the three ships of the expedition. Ray's situation is resolved, somewhat, and then the expedition departs towards the cluster. That's a very short way of summing up 11 episodes of stuff happening. But I suppose really the sort of serious side of it was Ray's trill business, I guess.
Trill business, I like that. It's a medical diagnosis. What have you got wrong with you? Oh, trill business. Oh,
it's trill business. Don't worry
I've
about
got a cream for that.
It's a topical ointment for trill business.
How do you apply that?
Carefully. No, but I mean, so really, the general gist of it. I mean, we've kind of, this was our first sort of big character like exploration sort of storyline that we've done, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Character deep dive.
Yeah, kind of based around the idea of like Ray's personal sort of past incarnations, kind of getting out of sync with each other. And yeah. When
I wanted to start doing Frontier, I thought to myself, what race would I want to be? And I thought I'd like to give it a go at being a trill, because there is, the idea that a trill, depending on its age, could have had 1, 2, up to maybe 7 or 8 hosts, and could have lived a long time, could have lived through all the formative years of Starfleet, through the years of the Federation as it started. And I liked the idea of having a kind of, not a complicated backstory, but something complex that might speak for why Ray is the way he is. And I did approach you, AJ, about having this incident that formed a part of Ray's current sort of frame of mind, his current psyche.
Well, quite a traumatic backstory, really.
Quite traumatic to begin with, and then his first host did die in a mountaineering accident on Earth, and the next host was a kind of an emergency change to preserve the symbiote
to a trill who previously had been not vetted really by the Symbiosis Commission and stuff. So this was sort of, I think, between the two of us, a way of sort of nodding to the whole like sort of secret plot, and I think in Deep Space Nine, where it sort of comes out that like, no, the Symbiosis Commission is telling the Trill people like, oh no, only a small fraction of you can take a biologically capable of taking a host, but actually that's not really the case. Most of them can. They're just they kind of keep it that way because there's a limited number of symbiotes, so they don't want people to be like, it's a conspiracy really, to be like, no, they're lying to the people to be like, so that there isn't like a big kind of clamoring for hosts, because most people are going to assume, I can't take one anyway. It's every single case with Ray, other than his first host, like his second and his third, current host, both of them were like not cleared, not designed. You were just like there's the only other Trill around here kind of thing. Exactly. And in both cases, it's kind of worked out. I say kind of worked out. It's worked out, but like obviously there's some trauma and stuff involved, which led to the situation.
Yeah, it's been out of necessity because, like I said, the first host died in a mountaineering accident, and that was an emergency transfer. But then the second host, who lived through the formative years of the Federation, there was a host that had been selected, but had been killed in a shuttlecraft incident, and the host was never going to arrive as a result. And Ray was on hand and offered to go in their place.
Let me bring up my document on the Ray symbiote here. I have a separate Word file.
Yeah.
So your first host went through the commission thing and everything.
Yeah.
We later found out had a big disagreement with one of the previous incarnations of another Trill that we'd run into in the course of this arc, Lady Rahl, who was on the commission at the time, but who had said, didn't think this host was suitable for a symbiote or whatever, but ended up getting the Ray symbiote anyway. So held on to a grudge sort of thing, to the point of like, you heard the name, that's Lady Ral, I hate Lady Ral, and it's like, okay, why though? You know, and then that sort of came out as the story went. Got that the Ray symbiote at the age of 24 and died at 37 in this climbing accident. Right. I have here actually an anomaly, because you said on the same day as the Battle of the Binary Stars, which is in like the first couple episodes of Star Trek Discovery, and then
I think I got my times mixed up a bit.
Well, no, this was more like we had a thing where a big part of this of this kind of arc was that this was like the kicking off thing was that it was the anniversary of that first host's death. However, our in-game date at that point was like January 28th, and the Battle of the Binary Stars has a date of May 11th in the canon. I think we got around this by just saying Ray's kind of confused about the whole thing. Yeah, which look,
it's a way. It's a way. It's disorientation.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, with the whole thing with Ray having a breakdown, it started to flitter back and forth between the personality of his previous host and who he is now.
Yeah,
but the one in the middle
got kind of lost in the shuffle, even though they had the symbiote for like over 100 years.
Yeah, the longest living one.
Yeah. So that was where the problem started happening with Ray, because all of a sudden you were like almost, I think we didn't sort of exactly spell it out, but you were kind of having like brownouts and like, sort of episodes where like normally I think your brain would be, again, we didn't spell this out. This is how I was picturing it, basically, that like you would be running in situations where you would be leaning on experience from the middle host, and your symbiote was going, nope, don't want to think about that. And so you were like sort of, having dizzy spells and collapsing and stuff. And
it was almost like it was redacting anything to do with that second host because of the trauma from the initial accident in the mountains in the Andes.
And you hadn't helped matters by, in the 2 weeks of shore leave at the start of episode 2 of the series, you had gone back to the Andes and climbed it again. I think that was kind of implied to be like the kicking off point of this, is like you went and visited the death site. Then it was like you thought it was the anniversary, and in the process, your symbiote was going, actually, you know what? I don't feel great about this. Like,
I think slight correction. To my memory, I think I spoke in the first episode to the officer at the con about what I was going to do next shore leave, and I mentioned maybe go climbing in the Andes and try not to die this time, and they were like, okay.
Yeah.
So I think as I recall, that was the plan to do. Actually, no, because
then we had the shore leave
after that. Yeah, we had the shore leave. Yeah, that's right. We didn't go back to Earth after we left. So, yeah, no, you are right. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's my brain.
No, it's fine. No.
But the thing that didn't help with this, though, with Ray's arc, is that he still had the climbing axe that failed him.
Yeah, so you had memory
when she was making the climb. It was a she.
Yeah,
the first host, and he's still got it in a box. And every time the anniversary rolls around, he's kind of drawn to it and doesn't quite know why, but he's kept it. And again, doesn't quite know why, and it is because there's this kind of trauma he hasn't been able to let go of.
Yeah. But then in this inciting into like this year, it's kind of all come to a head because you've managed to actually finally go back and sort of visit the site. At least this was my read on it. We didn't really spell it out so much in the thing, but like it felt to me like I've definitely had in mind your comments at the start of the series when we were doing this, of like you saying, "Oh, I've finally gone back and I didn't die this time," and then here we are, like 17 episodes later. And you'd mentioned about this thing, and I was like, well, that's pretty recent, because in game that was like a couple of weeks ago kind of thing.
Yeah.
So in my head I was like, well, this is the symbiote and Ray, so they've been sort of working through stuff subconsciously, and then it's kind of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think because he'd been back to the site and tried to conquer the climb, it's only in this anniversary or this period of time afterwards that it's become this severe problem, because he's trying to conquer it, but his redacted Trill memory is not allowing him to process it properly, which is why he's having the blackouts and everything else.
Yeah, we sort of said it when you finally managed to kind of get through the use of, well, we'll get to this in a second, but you got to sort of have a little bit of a vision where you talk to your previous host. And
the second one
had never wanted to go back there, which is also, I was thinking, trying to, it was the worst day of his life, he said, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
You'd taken him back, basically. So that was sort of him retreating into himself, and the symbiote itself is going, that's why they're doing all the, redacting sort of thing. And yeah. But we got to that vision by a little bit of well, we're sort of jumping around this whole kind of last set of episodes a little bit, but the other three got to go on a little bit of an investigation quest while you were lying in bed, kind of thing.
Yeah. Murphy researched some names and then handed them off to Arila and Johnny to figure out.
You went to go talk to other Trill, basically.
Yep.
To be like, hey, what's up with this? We're not getting any. You didn't get any good answers when you blew in a call to the Symbiosis Commission. They were just like, well, good luck. Kind of thing. You might want to try this, but like you didn't get the help that you wanted. I think when you tried to look in the databases. I think that was it. Medical databases. Arila tried to look up. What was it? And
we looked everything up, but there wasn't any information to find because it was never released.
Yeah, because the Symbiosis. Yeah, the again, sort of playing into this sort of Symbiosis Commission are very secretive about stuff, and if they put it out there publicly, then it's out there, sort of thing. But yeah, you went and there was you had a few names of like a couple of other joined Trill on the ship, but you decided to go and speak to a much older Trill who was you'd seen at the previous night's
the
dinner. Yeah, this is the problem. We're sort of jumping around a little bit here. When the ship arrived at Deep Space 3, the officers, the senior staff, were invited to a kind of formal sort of. I don't know if it was a dinner, but it was kind of like
a drinks kind of thing.
Like a formal event where there was going to be big wigs and
a mixer. I
guess there was a buffet, I think. But
I don't. Murphy doesn't remember the buffet.
No. But yeah, and at that event was where Ray collapsed, but also that was after seeing this other Trill who was introduced as Lady Rahl, who was like ambassador, and it was like a 10th generation symbiote, and it came out, like I say, it came out later on. She was also the one who didn't want the first host to get the Ray symbiote, but then
she's a bitch,
overruled. She's now
on the ship. I didn't say that in the episode, but she's a bitch. Yeah,
she turned out to be helpful.
Yeah,
eventually, yeah. The time changes people, I suppose, but several centuries, but
I don't know. There's still something about her that's a bit fishy, I think. So,
well, we'll see.
Reserving judgment.
She's on board. She's on board at the moment. You can go talk to her. But yeah, so you ended up as a sort of investigation team. Her name was raised by Murphy in her investigation, and Arila and Johnny went and talked to her, and she was a little bit cryptic, but ultimately agreed to help, and came and inspected Ray and made a couple of suggestions, and then that eventually led to some medicine that would hopefully rebalance the connection with the symbiote, I think, as a way of putting it. Eventually leading to this sort of vision that Ray had within himself of like where he was able to talk to a previous host and be like, I don't know, kind of just resolve things a little bit and get back on track.
It took down the barrier between Sabin Ray, who is the current version of that character, and the previous one who had that long serving life.
Yeah.
In the Federation, and I think that cleared things up for Ray, and at the very end of the season 1 arc, he takes the step of disposing of the climbing axe, a way of just getting rid of this part of his life and trying to move past it properly. And I think it is one of those kind of really introspective arcs that Star Trek loved to do, especially in DS9 and in Voyager to a certain degree, where the character's got a kind of inner turmoil that doesn't come to the forefront until things get really bad, and it is a sort of Star Trek-y thing, and I think it worked out quite well, and it helped to expand on Trill society, the way the Trill have operated, and it shed a bit of light on why, like you said, AJ, it shed light on why they are initially, or why they're initially very kind of controlling around who can and can't take a host, and things like that. So yeah, I thought it worked out quite well.
Yeah, I mean, episodes.
I was a shit shot when I tried to get rid of the axe as well, because I think I wanted to vaporize the axe and the box it was in, and all I did was burn a hole through it and get rid of the axe. There's just this box with a hole in it left.
Yeah, you didn't throw it out. You pulled a gun out in your quarters.
Yeah,
so
I didn't even tell anybody that it was happening, and it was just this phase of fire on the ship, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" Oh, nothing, sir, nothing.
I mean, definitely with the whole kind of thing. Some episodes of like TNG and that I had in mind was definitely the whole, the one where the Dax symbiote sort of regresses to, and puts the different personalities into other hosts as kind of like a ritual sort of thing. There's also there's a lot of Dax ones in this because obviously it's a Trill story kind of thing, but the one where finding out about the host that was forgotten about. I had that in mind. I also had in mind the one with the clip show one in TNG where Riker's on a bed and we're getting clip show stuff, just in terms of because you were on a bed and everybody's trying to help you.
Shades of grey.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like you say, that it's a very Star Trek thing to have a character going through this kind of thing, and it was quite heavy. Again, it was heavy recording session and everything, and
but the Ensign games balanced it out.
Yes, I was going to get to that. So the flip side of the flip side of while all this is going on is that we also had the other party that night, which was Johnny meeting up with his old academy friend Sullivan, and her and Bond going out with him to a tiki bar.
Oh yeah,
getting really, really plastered. Apparently, it was a fun night. We got to see Bond in a Hawaiian shirt. I say see. We got to imagine Bond in a Hawaiian shirt.
Yep.
I just have the image of him wearing sunglasses as well.
The fact that we haven't had, I really wish we had more fan art of that. I would love Hawaiian shirt Bond. As it is, I've got like a really rubbishy, like AI generated one, which is before we sort of decided that AI stuff was maybe not as cool as it seemed at the time. I do have, because I remember putting in Ferengi in a Hawaiian shirt, and I don't know, there we go, AI generated thing. And it came out with some quite fun stuff, but this was like an early-ish AI thing. I'm just going to check this in chat for you guys.
Oh yes, I remember the horror show.
Yeah. But it was, I really, really want like I just want some, I want some fan art of Bond. That's all I want. That's all I want in life. And like, I think we definitely have had some great fan art from Klepto. With I've got one of Bond with Everything Is Fine, with him with a sort of stress thing with where Murphy was putting him under pressure. We have a Johnny and Irila, I think on the tour one I have as well. And we got Think Johnny Think, which even I know you have featured on your stream.
That's my profile picture for Discord.
It is. Oh, it is. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Yeah. But I would love some Bond. Bond in a Hawaiian shirt would be that would make my day. But yes, the Ensign games happened while you were on the station as well, which was a friendly competition between the sort of lower ranks, lower decks people on each of the three ships of the expedition, and definitely not a thinly veiled attempt by me to have a big event episode be episode 100 of the podcast. No, that was a total coincidence, and it just was like when I realized it was going to be falling around that date, I was like, this could be, we'll make this a big episode. And then we had some great guest voices in, so we had all these I had to come up with like 3. It was you guys, and there was a team from the Nelson and a team from the Auckland. I was like, I need 10 other voice actors. So we can do this. And I'm really pleased with the Ensign Game stuff. But essentially, you were put onto 3 different holographic kind of scenarios, which are sort of planned beforehand. And I think, did I have you guys roll, or did you just sort of decide which one you were going for? Because I definitely had them all planned beforehand. I can't remember.
I think we picked, but I'm not sure.
Did I might have just said pick 1, 2, or 3. If I didn't, because that was the idea in me. Because I definitely had 3 different scenarios planned out, and I definitely had it before the recording.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was sort of there were spoilers. The team from the Tenzing ended up winning the competition. The competition was like, who deals with these scenarios the best, and it came down to like me doing a bunch of rolls for the other 2, just to sort of see how they kind of dealt with what came at them. But really, like, yeah, you guys sort of handled it the best with making some saves of some holographic NPCs and some engineering checks and things, and it sort of worked out well, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It was a fun kind of like light-hearted way to sort of bring the season towards the close, I think, to sort of be like quite optimistic, sort of like, yeah, this is just a bit of friendly competition between the ships. We're getting to know a few new NPCs. We're getting to sort of try out a few different things. We've been kind of, at this point, I think the show had been running for quite a while. I mean, we would try and put episodes out every 2 weeks or so, but we're quite a few episodes into the series at this point, so it's like, okay, let's have another slight change in tone for these ones and stuff, especially as we, I think, just had 4 parts of the Rey story kind of thing. So I'm pleased with it. Just as a high point for the podcast as well, to have the big event one on episode 100 was that was fun. But yeah, I don't know. Any thoughts on the Ensign Game stuff from you guys? Because you mostly, other than Eden, you all got to play like a different character than normal for that.
I think it was a lot of fun getting an opportunity to have Johnny alongside people of his rank. So that I kind of inflicted it on myself with the character, obviously, and I do like the dynamic, the fun that we can have with that. But to finally get an opportunity to play with you guys on the equal terms was great. Love that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I like the shift. It's nice having just a little break from being like
the boss.
Yes, but at the same time, another character within the same universe as well.
Yeah.
So like you could play something slightly different just for a short time, and have a little fun with that, and then it kind of adds in the background.
Yeah, I mean, so we've now got like a small group of characters that we can sort of jump you guys into if the scene requires it, and that as well, which is fun.
almost like we've got our lower decks cast as well.
They're saying we're going to need to come up with an upper decks character for Eden. he's the one. Yeah, I mean, Johnny's kind of sort of a little bit standing between, isn't he? Because he's Murphy's sort of putting him forward for away missions and things, but at the same time, you're doing the lower deck stuff.
Yeah, slowly on the way up, hopefully.
Yeah. So you're sort of bridging the gap, is what I'm saying, and but it's because that is one of the things I've kind of found as we've been playing, is that it's at least where I'm sort of steering the game a little bit as we're recording. It often feels like, okay, the senior staff are doing a thing, and then it's like I guess we should check in with Johnny kind of moment, which to me doesn't feel great, because it feels like I've sort of almost like I'm leaving you out of a scene, but really it's sort of like logically it hands together narratively. Having the option going forward to be like, let's check in with Johnny and his friends, and like everybody's there, sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if an opportunity could come up in the future where Johnny gets to join as a member of the bridge crew. Well,
I could just strand you all on a planet, and then there wouldn't be separate meetings.
Yeah, there's a bunch of reasons to get involved.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe a particularly excellent pilot is killed in a bridge explosion with sparks flying, and Johnny just has to take over.
But Johnny's older brother is suddenly transferred to the ship, Lieutenant Connaught.
Ooh. Rivalry.
And then Eden has to argue with himself. It's not just me talking to myself on this podcast anymore.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
Well, we shall see.
Johnny's a continental cousin from a non-specific European country. We just put a just borderline offensive accent even, and
hello, I am Ensign Conrad.
I really hoped he was going to be Australian.
I am looking for the nuclear vessels.
I don't know why, but it just screams Nikolai for some reason.
Oh, that'd be great. I'll just picture him being Australian. G'day, mate. I'm Johnny Two Shrimp.
Why would his name be Johnny still? Like,
I don't know.
The surname would be.
This is some kind of William Riker type situation.
Oh, and you get split in a transporter beam, and one of you gets promoted. Anyway, yeah. But no, I mean, it's a long way around to say I like the Ensign Games thing because it's introduced us to some more lower decks characters, and then not just on this ship as well. You've got some people that you've interacted with from the other ships as well, alongside of obviously we'd introduced before that Ensign Sullivan as like a sort of the idea of Johnny having a like a sort of rival, a friend rival from the academy was fun to me. And then obviously Cassie was been great revoicing that character as well, which has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely,
yeah. But yeah, sort of expanding the lower decks thing has been a lot of fun as well. Just because now they're not just names on a spreadsheet. Some of them have like your guys' names next to them in the voice column as well. So that's that's helpful. Yeah, it's good. I'm trying to think if I've forgotten anything really important from this sort of arc. We offloaded the family that you rescued in the Aurora story. They sort of got off here because they were going to like take some time here and then I think make their way back to Earth on like a civilian transport or something. Because Lynn's father was going to go back to Vulcan. That was a short scene, I think, towards the end. Bond made sure he bought a whole load of Sluggo Cola because to take with him into the cluster. It's all just
one piece Sluggo Cola.
Yeah. Algae filled, for goodness.
Love that peat moss smell.
Murphy found her mug.
That's true.
I was going to say that was the most emotionally charged part of the season. Is Murphy not knowing what happened to her mug after Ray fell?
It's true.
Yeah, there was a few days. A few days there where she was mugless
and shaking and fearful of just everything.
Well, we joked, but we did that. That was actually a little insight into Murphy's backstory as well, because you revealed it was your father's mug, and then we got a little view at the small the holodeck program that you go on to sort of look back at your, the planet
Homestead.
that you had to evacuate from, and there's just a little glimpse in there. Even making a joke about not wanting to give up your mug, we managed to get some character stuff in there, so that's good. And who knows, maybe we'll learn more about Murphy's backstory as we go on. Well, we definitely spent 20 minutes building a character that that she knew before she joined Starfleet.
We did.
I feel like we ought to introduce him at some point. I'm trying to remember where he is on my spreadsheet. He'll come up. Whatever.
He will come up.
Yeah.
He will come up.
I don't think there's anything else major we've left off, really. Other than you got kind of like the wished good luck by the admiral in charge of Deep Space 3. Let's say Lady Rahl, the Trill, and her butler, Curie, joined the crew as sort of Federation ambassadors. Or at least, I don't know how official that was. She joined in the sort of with the kind of view of like, oh yeah, any diplomatic help you can provide would be great. Obviously,
yeah, because is she not connected to the the space station commander kind of thing? Because there was like a weird.
There was a connection between them, wasn't there?
Yeah,
I think he was just like he was playing host basically. the kind of thing I had in mind was like she's just kind of like a pretty high up in Trill society. That's why she's got like Lady Ryle, and in kind of a sort of Luxana Troy sort of ambassador sort of thing where she's maybe like she is sort of. She's not really reporting to the Starfleet of the Federation. She's just there as like, well, this is a diplomatic kind of thing, but like she's got a lot of experience, and maybe it's more of like a kind of sort of unofficial post sort of thing.
So he was playing host in more ways than one. If the comparison is to
I didn't even think of host as the true thing. But but anyway, she's joined the ship as well. I mean, because the ship has a lot of nice VIP guest suites, which she has now taken one of. So, yeah.
Oh, hello.
That's
but
right.
They're not delegates, those two are assassins.
I mean, spoilers.
What, for an episode that came out in 1988?
Yeah. But, nothing is really jumping to mind that we've kind of missed here. We've sort of, the last couple of episodes, we were sort of tying up or at least, mostly resolving the Ray Trill thing, and then it was kind of final preparations for launch of the expedition, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we ended with the 3 ships of the expedition going to warp, heading in the direction of the Bermuda cluster. Finally, and it took 26 episodes. I want to say it was quite a few,
but it was a good season.
Yeah, I'm really happy with season 1, and I'm super excited for season 2. Bit of a peek behind the curtain. As I said earlier, we've already recorded several sessions of it, and as we're recording this, I have the first episode pretty much finished. But yes, excited for everybody to hear it, and excited to see how it all shakes out. I've got some big plans that hopefully everybody's going to enjoy. But we're not very far into it as well, so that's spoilers. That's I don't want to spoil anything for you guys as well, because we've only recorded 3 times for it so far. But yeah.
Looking forward to more.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Fun time.
Can somebody else have an emotionally charged backstory this time?
Okay, we're going to have a roll-off here. Who wants the emotionally charged backstory this season?
I mean, it depends what happens.
Yeah, it's true.
Depends what we're faced with.
It's true, yeah.
I'll tell you what. Eden, Dragon, and Amy, just do the dice spot. Whoever gets the lowest roll wins. So that's to have the arc.
Well, this is a fun way to end it then.
Yeah.
So what are we rolling?
A D20?
Yeah, 1D20.
There's 1D20, and we'll see who gets what, and then we'll just arbitrarily. Oh, that's a 5 from Dragon with.
This is where I roll a critical fail.
18 from.
I knew
18 from Eden.
I fucking knew it.
Roll below me.
A 3 from Amy.
Because it's me.
Oh, I was convinced 5 would be it.
So here's the thing, then. Here's the thing.
I knew.
It's Star Trek Adventures, so lower numbers are better. But
not in this case. Not in this case.
I will keep a secret as to which one of you is. So which one of you has ever moved?
Which one you're going to plan for?
I'm in the middle.
No, we'll see what happens. This is a joke mostly, but yeah.
Oh, not in my head. It's not.
Every session, you're going to be eagerly awaiting some kind of personal bombshell to be like, here we go.
A little caveat.
Let me get the popcorn. Yeah.
So basically, the way I'm looking at that is 18. Eden's going to have some kind of basic medical emergency that's embarrassing. 5. Brother Eden's going to discover something she never knew about her family, and that's quite tragic. And then Murphy rolling the 3. The whole of the universe is at stake, and she's the only one that can help.
Her mug gets broken.
Mug gets broken.
It turns out the mug is a thing. If you destroy Murphy's mug, she suddenly gains omnipotent Bajoran god powers or something.
It's the only thing holding her back.
There's a secret in the mug. There's a secret hidden in the mug.
The mug is actually it's an orb. It's a Bajoran orb that's been polymorphed? No, that's D&D. Like
that's red dwarf. Polymorph.
Anyway,
the mug is a changeling that has been lurking since.
Oh, you've been drinking Odo. You've been drinking Odo.
Gross. So many levels. No,
I wonder why
it
it kept refilling itself.
He'll have been holding the coffee. I would have been drinking it. He would have been holding the coffee.
Holding it in an open cavity in his body.
Oh God, if Odo was the cup, which bit of him were you holding on the handle?
Oh. I'm in an ear, like, so the cup is like an open mouth. Like
so the handle is the ear.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This is a weird note to finish this on.
Well, we do weird quite well, don't we, I think?
But anyway, I'm excited for season 2. We'll see how it goes in terms of harrowing personal drama. But I'm excited.
Hopefully not too harrowing.
Yeah. I'll try and keep it to just
only mildly
entertainingly harrowing,
traumatizing.
Yeah,
Johnny's gonna have space athlete's foot or something.
Him and Bond get fused together in an unholy
no, not another
accident.
2 Vics. Not another 2 Vics.
It's Bonji. Bonji.
Jonge.
Or Jonge.
Oh, I love Jonge. That's brilliant. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining me for this. I think this has been fun to look back, and now we can look forward. Yeah.
Can boldly go.
Yeah. We'll see you all next time then for, I guess, the first episode of season 2.
Indeed.
Soon.
Be seeing you.
I don't have a set date when we're recording this. So, anyway,
goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.